Hello and welcome to Down and Dirty with Darci. I'm your host, Darci Smith, also known as Career Coach Darci. We are here to get down and dirty about careers, uncovering salaries, wild stories, backgrounds, and more from guests with some of the most eccentric professions each week. This podcast is presented by Onomy. Welcome back to Down and Dirty with Darci. It is just my face today because we are switching up the format. And for the new listeners, those who don't know me, I am Career Coach Darci. You might have seen my face on your TikTok or your Instagram, but I'm helping people with their careers. I am talking all things salary negotiation, how to get a job, what to put on your resume, everything you can think of when it comes to the career world. That's me. That's what I'm all about. So the format today is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to introduce our guests so we can jump into the interview right away. And then at the end, Rami and I will chat a little bit and we'll do our career column. So Nikkilette Wright is our guest. She was absolutely amazing. She is a stunt double. She was also on American Ninja Warrior, I think 3 times. She talks about what it's like getting into the industry and what it's like to be in it and have to find your next job, because I found that fascinating. So let's just jump right in and get to the interview with Nikkilette. Here she is.
Yesterday, gosh, I think I got up at 6 a.m., had jujitsu for 2 hours, had a fight scene out in the park, or fight rehearsal out in the park for like 2.5 hours, come home, eat, shower. Then I had bow staff, then I had sword training. It's constant training.
Oh my God. I was going to ask you, what's a day in the life of a stunt person? Welcome to Down and Dirty. Nikkilette, thank you so much for coming. I am going to just throw it over to you right away so you can tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then we'll jump into some more questions. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I am originally from Chicago. My mom owns a gymnastics gym out there, so very athletic background. Moved to California, totally unrelated, just to get out of the cold. And then was on a movie set and kind of saw something, or behind the scenes, what was going on. And then there's a big fight scene. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, this is what I want to do. Found out that was the actual career path and got into stunts about 7 years ago.
Oh my gosh. So you have a background in gymnastics or no?
Yeah.
You do. Okay. So you had that. And then how were you on the movie set? How did you get to that point?
I was doing background, actually. So I knew one person out here in LA when I moved out here, and she was an actress, and I thought it was just the coolest career, and she was so good. I was like, I want to come to, work with you and see. And she's like, well, you can't really do that, but go sign up, do some background. You can see how movies are made. I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. I remember growing up in grade school, like at career day, it was like, be a teacher or be a policeman or something. They said nothing about the movie industry or that you could be a stunt person. So yeah, I would have skipped college. I would have skipped all that. Went straight to
stunts.
I
would have went straight to this. Yeah. So how did you even get into it? Like, once you were like, okay, this is my dream job, the fight scenes, I want to do all of that, where did you go next?
So that day on set when I saw the big fight, it was still very foreign to me, but it was cool to see. I knew in movies that, people didn't really hurt themselves. You didn't really die in this car accident, but had no clue how it worked.
Yeah.
So it was this huge fight with like 15 guys. And when we went to lunch, I snuck from the background holding, went over to all the guys, and one by one just kept hounding them till somebody would give me some information.
That is amazing.
And out of those,
like
that whole
networking
group
101.
of guys, yes. And everybody's like, oh, you're a female, you're skinny, you don't have martial arts background. Like, they just kept knocking me down. And one guy gave me a name of somebody to train with. The next day, I went there, started training with him. And then it is a lot of networking. You find out where to train, what to train, how, who, all that, and just take it from there.
What? That is incredible. I was expecting you to be like, yeah, so I went online, looked up a training facility. But no, you were like, I just went to the people that were doing it. Ask them how they got there.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's no how-to guide. There's no Bible of how to get into stunts. And it makes it really fun and interesting as well, because I think me and so many of my friends have different ways that they got into stunts. But again, there's not a college that you go to for accreditation. There's not a facility that you can train everything. You have to kind of figure out what areas you want to get into and go train those on your own, and then kind of bring it all back together into stunts.
Okay. And what do you specifically do in terms of stunts?
I would like to say that I'm pretty well-rounded. Any stunt person has to be a fighter and a ground pounder, basically, the majority of my work, I'm going to fight somebody, I'm going to get shot and die. So,
oh my gosh. So you have to like know how to, you're acting. Like you have to know how to
yes.
die. Like I'm doing the movement. Like it hits my
Get
shoulder.
shot and-
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of hitting the ground very hardly. I think a lot of people don't know that there's no special trick to it. You know, sometimes we get a little bit of padding or we can hide padding in our clothing, but it's literally you and that concrete. You're making contact. So you have to understand how to do that safely, be resilient enough to do it over and over again. And then so again, fighting and dying kind of the two basic ones, but then there's so many different specialties. I really like doing high falls. I mentioned
Casual. I really like falling from the highest building possible.
Oh, it's so funny. I mentioned I'm not a good public speaker. Like I would rather jump off of a 3-story building into some boxes than
talk to you right now.
Exactly.
I mean, that's good. You're in the right profession. That's amazing. So you like doing that, and that usually comes with a fight scene or something, or having to jump. Or when do they switch out? This is like, pulling back the curtain here, but when do they switch out, like actor first or actress for stunt double?
It really depends on the scene. As much as possible, they usually want the face of the actor or actress. So if we're doubling somebody, it's as the action or the possibility of them getting hurt. Once that kicks in, then that's when we stop and kind of do a little cowboy switch.
Okay.
If you're not doubling, if you're just doing ND stunts, nondescript stunts.
Sorry, explain that.
Nondescript stunts.
Okay.
So if you were doing a scene and you needed somebody to do something that you could potentially get hurt with, we would have a double for you. But within that scene, there might be another cop, or there might be somebody else that you're fighting that's not a double. That's just a stunt performer.
I see. Okay.
So if someone is doing ND stunts or just a stunt performer for that day, there is no switch. It's just you.
They're basically
acting, you're
Mm-hmm.
acting and doing stunts within the same realm.
Got it. Do you do that as well?
Yes. Yeah.
So you do stunt double, and what do you do more of, do you feel like?
Right now, stunt performer is still my main bread and butter, what pays
Okay.
the bills. But I definitely like acting and the fact that I can be my own self. If I'm doubling somebody, I have to be that person. I have to watch how they walk, how they move, how they sit, and replicate all that.
Yeah.
If I'm doing ND stunts, then I can be my own character, but acting is just a whole different realm that you can just really be creative and be yourself in.
Dang. Do you do mostly movies, TV shows? Does it everything?
A little bit everything. I feel like LA right now has a lot more TV shows filming
Yeah.
than movies. Movies are usually, we get sent out of state for those a lot more.
Okay. Nice. What's the coolest project you've worked on for your sake, like just that you enjoyed most?
The one that I loved the most, that will probably stick with me, there was a Black Western called The Harder They Fall on Netflix. James Samuel was the director. Amazing man. But it got to, there was an 8-minute fight scene at the end of the movie. It started as 8 minutes, got cut down, of course.
Oh my
by
gosh,
the final
8
production.
minutes? Dang.
8 minutes, and it's only 2 people fighting. So it was Regina King and Darci Beats are the main actresses. So it was those two. I was Darci's double, and then Regina King's double. The 4 of us just day after day rehearsing the scene and going through all the nuances. When you're doubling, you also get to teach the actress a lot of the fight scene. So they were both very physical. They could do a lot of stuff on their own. So it was our responsibility to teach them as well. So I was out in New Mexico, 4 months, I think. It was during COVID. So you're kind of in this bubble. You can't really go out. So it was just the 4 of us day after day rehearsing and practicing. Got to know them very well. And Regina King is just an amazing actress, woman, director. Like, she does it all. So I think that was one of my favorite experiences, just getting to know them so well and spending so much time together.
I was going to ask that. I feel like you probably get really close with, especially the people you're doubling, because you have to, like you said, get to know their movements and what they do, and then you're talking to them and teaching them. That's so cool that you're the one actually teaching them the moves and things that they need to do. Are you still at this point training all the time as well?
Yes. I think if you're a stunt performer, there is no... You've reached a point where you could just relax and not do it.
You're always training.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier there's specialties, but There's things like wire work when you're held up on the wires. There's fire burns. There's driving cars and boats. There's water stuff. There's so many different areas that unless you specialize in just one, a lot of people like to drive and they're just good drivers. They're not going to hit the ground. They're not going to use weapons and fight. That is a specialty that, you know, you can kind of just master that and be good at. But if you do everything, you're constantly training. Yesterday, gosh, I think I got up at 6 a.m., had jiu-jitsu for 2 hours, had to drive down to Mar Vista, had a fight scene out in the park, or fight rehearsal out in the park for like 2.5 hours, come home, eat, shower. Then I had bow staff, then I had sword training. It's constant training.
Oh my God. I was going to ask you, what's a day in the life of a stunt person? When people ask you, what do you do for work? What do you say?
I usually try to be general and just be like, oh, I'm just in the industry, TV and film.
Oh, you play a real backseat.
Yeah, you know, and then if they start really probing, I'm like, well, okay, I'm a stunt performer. And they're like, oh, is that a stunt double? What do you do?
Yeah.
And then the conversation just
then this happens. Yeah. So stunt performer is like the proper term, I guess, the terminology.
Stunt woman, stunt man, stunt performer is either sex, so just a general term.
Cool. And then if you are on a TV show or something like that, you would be just like an actor would be there the whole entire time, or do they switch out stunt performers often?
When it's a major movie, what just came out? John Wick. Keanu had, I think, 3 or 4 doubles throughout the film, and they might all be there on the same day doing different things. Sometimes it's a specialty that they need them for, or sometimes that you're just getting so abused you can't perform for 8 hours.
Yeah,
you have
I was
to
gonna say.
kind of switch it. I think there was a crazy scene where he went down like 200 steps.
Oh, that's my favorite scene of the movie. It is. You haven't seen the movie?
Yeah.
Or you have?
Yeah.
And he had to force himself
going.
over the. I was like, come on, guys, let's get this cheesier. But he was just like rolling,
Going and going.
And so someone was doing that.
Yeah.
And just getting
physically,
beat
the
up.
stairs aren't padded. It was concrete. And you know, the movie industry, like, you film everything from different angles. So that one stair fall, they might have filmed like 15 times.
Oh man. Have you ever been seriously injured doing it?
Actually not from stunts.
Oh, something else.
I was a professional basketball player.
Okay.
And I've torn both ACLs playing basketball. So knock on wood, stunts has not hurt me anything significant. I've had a couple stitches above my eye. But that healed up pretty well, and
nice.
Hopefully it stays like that.
Yeah, you skipped the part about being a professional basketball player. That's amazing. Where did you play?
In Chicago, back in the Midwest. Again, growing up as a gymnast, I think it's such a good base sport that helps you get into anything else. Super athletic family. Both my parents. My mom was a gymnast and owned gym too as well in Chicago. So that kind of just got me into any sport. I could pick it up relatively easily.
Yeah.
Was a complete tomboy growing up. So I was like, I don't want to dance. I don't want to do anything cute. I just want to play sports all day.
Yeah. That's funny. My parents threw me into dance and gymnastics. But I say that because I got into sports later. And I'm like, those were my baselines of being good at sports, was having the balance and the core work that you have to get from all of that. So it makes perfect sense.
Body moves. Yes.
Yeah. I could talk ACLs with you all day, but I think people would not like that. But did you do patella, tendon?
Yes. So I did a cadaver.
Okay.
Of patella on the first one, and then the second one they did my hamstring graft, which I do not recommend to anybody else.
No. Yeah.
Symmetry still isn't the same to this day.
Dang. But you haven't re-injured, like doing, again, knocking on wood, but you haven't injured, or what's the worst, I guess, in terms of pain that you've had to go through when doing a stunt?
So my chiropractor, my physical therapist, and my masseuse are my best friends.
Yeah.
We literally get beat up on a regular basis. That's what we get paid for.
Yeah.
To be uncomfortable, to get beat up. So there's been a couple times where I have to take, a good couple weeks, maybe a month off to rehab something that just got jolted out of place, or there's a bruise so bad that, I can't get up in the morning and function.
Oh my gosh. You're like, no big deal. But those are all really nice write-offs because they're for your job.
And honestly, I take the best care of myself right now. In your 20s, or high school, 20ish, you think you're invincible, and you just, you don't sleep, you don't eat right. And all that, now I'm like, no, I have to get my 8 hours, proper nutrition. I get a body works person working on me like every other week, just in case,
amazing.
just to maintain. So
yeah, I mean, it's literally your job, and we should all be taking care of our bodies, but but yeah, it's literally your job.
Yeah.
How often are you working versus training? Like, how often are you on a set, or I guess rehearsing for something?
The fun thing about our lives is there's no consistency. There are times where I've gone like 2 months without any work whatsoever, and you start getting nervous. And you're like, oh, how am I going to pay the bills? And I really want to get on set. And then something, a new movie will come on, and you're out of the country or something for 4 months, and you're like, man, I want to be back home. I want to be training.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hit or miss. In theory, if you're not working, you should be training almost 7 days a week, because there is so much to maintain. Even if you have the skill set, then you have to keep up your cardiovascular, so training should be almost every single day.
Dang.
And then Monday through Friday, ideally, working on a show would be great. Have the weekend off, recover, and then repeat. But again, it just depends on what's filming, what they need you for.
Yeah. Do you have an agent? Is that how it works in your industry?
I have an agent for acting and for commercial, but for stunts, we don't have agents.
What? That is shocking to me. I almost didn't ask the question because I was like, duh, of course you have an agent.
Yeah.
What? That is wild. So where do you go when you're like, I'm ready to be on something? How do you get the job?
So we do what we call hustling. Basically, when I got into the industry and found out this is how I got work, I was like, is this legal?
Yeah.
So basically, I'll be driving around LA, and if I see the yellow posted signs that something's filming, I'll literally pull over, sneak onto set, find out if there's a stunt coordinator. If there is, I go hustle him. I go introduce myself. We all have demo reels, your resume. I'll show them my demo reel, let them know what my skill set is, and be like, hey, hire me. And basically, you have 2 minutes to convince this person that you are safe enough and have a skill set for what they need you for.
What? And this is a normal practice.
This is how, yeah. Once you've been in the industry for years and have a reputation, once you work for a stunt coordinator, they can hire you back if they like you, if you did well. So you can start building up a reputation. They might recommend you to somebody else, and it's a lot easier. But essentially, getting into the business, you hustle yourself to get work.
So now, how long have you been doing this?
Let's see. I've been in LA 7 years. I think I have been in the SAG union 5 years now.
Okay. And if someone wants to hire you, if you hadn't pulled your car over and gone and asked them themselves, but they knew you from another project, they would just call your cell phone?
Yeah.
I'm like, they're like, hey, I'm going to be doing this fight scene. Can you work this day?
Pretty much. Now there are about 4 databases online that we pay a monthly subscription, and we have our profile on there. We have our skill set. And so a lot of my stunt doubling jobs will come from there. A coordinator has an actress, and he'll be like, okay, who's 5'7", 135, lives in LA and can do this. And then they can search those
parameters.
And then they'll come up, or my profile will pop up, and they'll give me a call, or sometimes they'll do checks around. I'll have a show listed, and they'll say, okay, who was the coordinator on there? Let me call him and see, how was her personality? How was her skill set? Yeah. Wow. And a lot of being on set is, are you likable? Are you professional? Can people work with you even more than your actual skill set?
Yeah, definitely. This ties in so much to what I do as a career coach, because number one, the hustle factor and the networking, being likable. I mean, it's all the same stuff no matter what industry you're in. So it's definitely 100%. Do you feel like you're going to do this forever? Can your body do it forever is a better question.
I would love to do it forever, but yeah, no, there's definitely going to be an expiration date on my body. Again, you can do specialty like driving behind behind the wheel of a vehicle. You just have to have your reaction time, but you don't have to be physically fit. You don't have to hit the ground. So a lot of stunt people, as they start getting towards retirement years, will go into something like that. Or you can go into coordinating, where you're the actual coordinator, hiring the stunt people, running everything on the show. Another reason kind of why I'm getting into acting is because I know there is an expiration date. But I'm going to ride this train as long as I can.
Yeah. What's the female to male ratio-ish, if you know it, when it comes to stunt performers?
Actual numbers, I would say there's at least two-thirds. That's a good question. I'd say to every 5 guys, there's got to be at least 3 females.
Okay, that's good.
If not more.
That's amazing. Okay, I didn't know if it was more of a male dominated or not.
I think it definitely used to be, and there used to be issues with what we call wigging. They would hire a guy to double a female and put a wig on him.
Oh man.
Which is no longer okay.
Okay, yeah.
And no longer needed.
Yeah.
Honestly, there is not a stunt that a male can do that there's not a female out there that can do it.
Right.
So sometimes you run into, are they the right height or ethnicity, built? But other than that, the actual skills, like there's a female. We got some badass females in the industry. We can do whatever the guys can do.
Yeah. Okay, this is not something I told you I was going to ask, but I'm so curious. Would you ever do, what's that show where they go through the thing, not American Gladiator, but what's the one?
American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah, that one.
That's funny that you ask. So I've actually done the show 3 times.
Oh my God. I was like, maybe I subconsciously saw you on there and she's definitely, how was it?
It was really cool. I remember growing up watching the show and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but then when you're in the industry and you see how it's all created, it's a different story. That show is a little bit rough because it's filmed outdoors to keep the consistency of the skyline. And so I think my first year, I was at a LA studio lot, and about 3 a.m. is when I was chosen to run the course. So you're just sitting in this parking lot in the cold for hours previous to it. It had rained, I think, that night. Like, you're cold, you're wet, trying to get on the course, and then it's like bright lights in your face, and everybody's cheering. It's like, okay, go, do it now. So I was definitely very blessed and grateful for the opportunity, but knowing how it takes to get to there is, and then the glamour and glitz of what you see on screen is totally different. And I think that's with everything with TV and film. Like, prior to me getting into the industry, I had no idea. You see a 30-minute TV show and you're like, oh,
cool.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Yeah.
Well, little did you know that took like a month of filming and God knows how many millions of dollars to get that 30 minutes of show that people like.
Right. So you were on it 3 times?
Yes. So I did 2.
That's amazing. Sorry, I'm like...
I did 2 individual shows. My younger brother, who was actually a diver at the University of Tennessee, he was the first Black national champion diver ever.
What? That is amazing.
He did the show, and because he was a diver, he thought, okay, what's my little gimmick? He decided to run the show in his diving Speedo.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to guess.
So he is known as the Speedo Ninja, and then kind of coerced me and my sister to auditioning. 2 years ago, we actually did a family episode. It was my brother, myself, and my cousin, which was incredible to bring us all from different states, get us together on the course. Yeah,
that's amazing. And is your cousin and your sister also like they do sports and all of that too?
Yeah, so we are all college athletes. My sister and I were both basketball and track. My brother was a diver. My sister is actually in Austin, Texas, and getting into stunts as well. She just got her SAG card. She had a couple jobs underneath her belt. So
that's amazing. Do you
in the family
to be a stunt performer? Can you live anywhere, and you think it's best to live in LA to try and get the best work?
I mean, honestly, you can live anywhere, but the training and the work are definitely in bigger filming cities. LA is a great city. Atlanta is a good one. New York, Chicago has a good market. So if you live in one of those cities, it's much easier to train to get better, and then that's most likely where the bulk of your work is going to be as well.
Got it. And then I'm really big on salary transparency and just kind of talking through what different industries make and things like that. Can you share with us a little bit about what a typical day on set or even a range of what someone can make as a stunt performer?
Sure. We are under the same contract that actors are for SAG, Stunt Actors Guild. Our base rate for right now is $1,082 for a day, and that's for an 8-hour time period.
Okay.
Once we go past the 8 hours of filming, then you're talking about overtime. You can go into double overtime. Another benefit that we have is we get adjustments, which is basically a little bonus depending on, number one, the budget of the film, but number two, the difficulty of your
stunt or something?
stunt, and then how many times you have to do it. So if it's a huge, $1 million show that has all this money to throw around and you're getting hit by a car, you're going to have a nice bump at the end of the day. But yeah, it really just depends on the show. And then if you do, there's weekly contracts, 3-day contracts where it breaks down to a little bit less per day. But depending on how many days out of 365 days a year you're working, you can make some good money.
Yeah, definitely. What has been your favorite stunt that you've done so far?
Favorite stunts? I was in Utah, and it was for a horror film called Sick.
Okay.
My actress climbs onto the roof and is getting attacked by this bad guy, this monster that's coming after her. And so she falls off of, I think it was about 3 stories up, off of this roof at night. And as we're rehearsing it, I'm up on the lift because we weren't able to step onto the actual roof of the house that we had. They had rented to use. The owner was like, no, don't mess up my roof.
Weird. Yeah. But like, thanks for making it difficult on me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm in this lift, waiting for the director to say action, and these bats start flying around because we have a little light shining on the lift. So these bats are flying around. I'm hanging off the lift, and they're like, wait, hold on, we have to readjust something. So I'm like, okay. And then you notice like other things flying in the air, and it just gets kind of spooky and eerie.
Yeah.
But high falls is one of my favorite things. So had to go backwards off of this lift, 3-story. Well, the house was 3 stories, but because the lift was above the roof, a little bit more than that. And then we used boxes, like moving boxes from U-Haul.
Okay.
And so we set up a box catcher, which is just a little formation, but you're basically falling off of 3 stories into some boxes on your back. And
that's it?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do they film that? Because what was the actual movie shot? What were you falling to the ground?
Yes. So that one, they did throw a green screen on top of the boxes.
I see. Okay.
So when I fell and then hit the boxes was one cut. And then after all that was removed, everything put back to how it was, they had me do, I think I stepped off of like a 3-foot ladder and just jumped to my back. And then they filmed that from above and then pieced them together.
Got it. Cool. Awesome. I love that. And can you share like what movies or things that people would like, not recognize you probably because they wouldn't recognize you, but that you've been in?
Yeah, if they recognize me as a double, then somebody did not
Something
do their
is
job.
wrong. Yeah.
Yes, and it's so my grandmother, bless her heart, wants to see me on TV.
Oh.
And it's so hard to explain. Yeah, I'm on the show, but you're not gonna see me. She's like, I saw this other girl, but it wasn't me. Yeah.
Yeah. Just tell her it's you sometime.
That's what I'm just like. Yeah,
that's me.
Under that wig, that's me. And she's like, but no, I don't see you. It doesn't look like you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing people don't realize. We might not look exactly alike in the face, but when you put someone's hair together, you put them in the wardrobe, if they're the same height and built, you can't tell the difference.
You cannot tell. Yeah.
One of my favorite ones that I mentioned before was The Harder They Fall. I double Mika Cox on The Rookie a lot.
Oh, cool.
Lone Star, 911 Lone Star is another favorite one of mine. Brianna, I'm her double. And it's funny because we're not the same height, but we look very similar in built and everything.
Oh, cool.
And so there's times that you're able to cheat with camera angles and et cetera that people can't tell the height difference.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I love it. Is there ever been a situation on set where it's been either awkward or interesting or embarrassing? I feel like the movie industry is just like awkward things can happen.
Many of them.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like expect the unexpected.
Right.
There was a show I was doubling a we'll say voluptuous actress, and she had to do a back tuck off of these concrete stairs, and they didn't tell me that who I was doubling or anything until I got there on the day. And I was like, our body types are nothing alike, absolutely nothing. So I was like, how is this gonna work? Go in a wardrobe and they pull out we call it a fat suit. It's
Yeah.
an enhancement suit.
They probably need to change that term, right?
Yeah. That's what we call it. I think the proper name is enhancement suit.
Okay. I'd call it a fat suit, but go on.
So much easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, huge belly, huge boobs. Like, I don't even know how they fit a bra, like, to fit this outfit. So I got the boobs, I got the belly, the thigh pads, like this huge thing. I could barely walk.
And you're supposed to do a back tuck.
I couldn't bend over to tie my shoes. Like, that's how much padding was in there. And they're like, yeah, okay, you know, it's 3 a.m. in the morning. Okay, we got to get this last shot. Go ahead and go flip off the stairs. And I'm like, okay, we're going to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things you kind of just chuck it and hope for the best. And
did you do it?
Yes.
Oh my God. That's so impressive. You're like having to throw like a ton of more weight than you're used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the body manipulation, when you're flipping, you want to get into a small little ball.
Yeah.
And I just physically couldn't do that because of the fat suit. It was just in the way. But
that's so funny.
We're paid the big bucks to get it done.
Get it
so
done.
They don't care how you do it, just get it done.
Yeah. Do you like fight scenes with swords and like just different, you know, things that you hold?
Yeah. So most of the fight scenes are with like a gun or a knife.
Yeah.
But I love practicing bow staff, which is the really long sword they used on Black Panther.
Okay.
Swords. There's all different types of swords and knives too, lengths and heights and widths. There's nunchucks. There's so many different little weapons.
So
It's like every little kid's dream job.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid to play around with toys and play pretend pretty much.
Yeah, I love that so much. When I first moved out to LA, I did a little bit of acting and I was in acting class. And I worked with someone that was really into specializing her fight scene work and things like that. So I would like kind of spar with her and play around. I mean, I wasn't any good at it, but she just like knew every movement, how to roll, how to tuck, how to dip. And I'm like, this is so intricate and intense. And you watch these fight scenes and they show on TV and it's so smooth and easy and chill. And yeah, talking to someone that the training that you do, I mean, it's wild. Do you like go out and party and drink or any of that, or you just like take such take such good care of your body that that's not really in the schedule?
No, there has to be a balance. Like, you have to enjoy life. And fortunately, I love what I do, so it's also fun. And then you talked about, you know, tax write-offs and payoffs. Like, I get paid to learn how to scuba dive or, you know, to drive my motorcycle. So there's so much fun within all that as well. But stunt people also like to have a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Okay,
cool. I feel like sometimes partying with the stunt friends, with the stunt crew, is more extreme than my just non-stunt friends as well.
I feel like you guys are there's something going on in your heads to make it more fun of, I want to get thrown off this building, I want to be hit by a car, you know.
We can't do anything just normal. You
right.
know? Yeah, you have to one-up it. Oh, I challenge you to do this with it, or
I am so impressed, number one, but I love your story of how you're just like, I knew I wanted to do that, and I talked to was doing it and I figured out a way to do it. And still to this day, are you still kind of, when you're driving around, you're eyeing?
Oh, absolutely. Every single day.
Something's going on.
Yeah, I've been late to things because I saw a movie filming. I'm like, wait, let me pull off and see. Yeah. And it's funny because I am very much an introvert and quiet, and I don't like talking to strangers. So moving out here and finding out that's how I got work was an extreme shock for me. And again, I was like, is this legal? Like, people really do? I thought somebody was playing a joke on me.
Yeah.
And like, no, this is how you get work. So
that is impressive.
It's just it was one of those things like, hey, like, you want to get this done. And I didn't get into stunts when I was 15, when I was 18. So there's also a press for time too. You know, like, I know I have to get into the industry, which is going to take me a good 5 years, then have to, you know, build up my resume, my skill set. And, you know, this is a long-term thing. Like, I need to do it ASAP. So it was just kind of forced to get it done.
Is there anything about your work or the industry that, specifically, I guess, stunt performers, that people wouldn't know and you would want them to know, I guess?
So I love seeing actors on TV who claim to do their own stunts. Let me nip that in the bud.
So
a lot of people do some of their own stunts. Tom Cruise is an amazing athlete. He is physically capable of doing all his own stunts, probably, but nobody does all of their own stunts. Nobody.
Yeah.
Legally, a production won't allow you because Tom broke, what was his ankle or something, jumping from building to building at one time, and the amount of money that he had to cost production because
Right.
everything halted. They're like, no, we won't even let you do all that. Yeah. So taking nothing away from actors, and a lot of time they will do, little punches and kicks and all that stuff. But when it comes down to the really dangerous stuff, that's usually a stunt performer stepping in. And again, no one does all of their own stuff.
I listened to Keanu Reeves recently on Smartless, and they asked him that. They were like, oh, we hear you do your own stunts. He was like, no. I do some things that I fight in. I do not do my own stunts. Let's make that very clear. Like, he was very, I don't want that going around, He was really good about it, because I've heard that too. I've heard that he does all of his own stunts, and that's just the way they say it. I do all my own stunts, and I'm like, there's no way. So he was very much like saying, no, we have stunt doubles. I've been trained in certain fight scenes and been able to do certain things, which makes a lot more sense.
And he is a phenomenal actor, especially, not being 20, he's a little older in his age.
He's old.
When he's physically capable is very impressive. And now with the internet and, videos all over, you can see a lot of the clips of training or pre-biz that we do, and you can see what he actually did, and it's very impressive what he's capable of. His driving skills especially too.
Do you drive?
I'm getting into it.
Are you?
I have to be careful how I say that, because yes, I train driving, but to say you're a professional stunt driver, you're the best of the best. You got 10 years plus of training and on-set performance. Yeah.
So there's not that many of those people running around.
There's a lot of us that are training to get to that point, but to another industry person, you can't claim to be a stunt performer until a stunt driver until you're well into the game with that. Yeah.
I'm picturing Deadpool. So I feel like there's a lot of stunt driving in Deadpool. And there had to be a really good, because there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could go with Fast and Furious, but for some reason Deadpool was my decision there.
Right to that one. But yeah, driving's fun though. And I grew up riding motorcycles, so I have not been hired yet to do a driving stunt. I got to do a little, just kind of peel off on the scene, but it's not something I can put on my reel and show off. So waiting for that one to happen. But motorcycles.
Can you also go online and just apply to jobs that are open?
No, there's no you know how like if you're an actor, there's this commercial and they're looking for this. There's not that for stunts. Yeah, it's again kind of the stunt coordinator reaches out to you, or if you find out what show is filming, what coordinator's on there, then you try to find their email address and reach out to
underground.
them.
Very underground.
It's fun, but it's a lot.
So if you could go back, I feel like I already know the answer to this. Would you do anything else beside what you're doing?
No.
You're like, I would just do it sooner.
Exactly. I coached gymnastics for 15 years. I love kids, and I love what the sport, how the confidence it can build, especially in little girls. I used to get such a joy seeing a gymnast learn a new trick and just come over and hug you, and they're so happy, and you just made a difference in their life, and I absolutely loved that. But getting paid to play pretend kind of trumps that for me a little bit. Stunts is my dream job right now.
Makes perfect sense. And then do you I know you have social media because that's how I found you, but do you want people to follow it? I can, this is where I would say, where can they follow you? But I always like to make sure people want to be followed.
No, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah. How can people follow you? Because you post a lot about your stunts, right? On there.
I do. Yeah. I think a lot of people, if you're not in the industry, you don't know how it works.
Right.
It's cool to see behind the scenes stuff and what's going on. Instagram is probably my biggest platform. And my name is not spelled like it sounds.
Yeah. I was like, spell it out for us. Yeah.
So the first name is Nikkilette, Nikkilette, and then my last name's easy to remember. It's Wright, like the Wright brothers, Wright. So if you look me up on social media, it should pop up right away.
Yeah, I literally had it in my mind that I wanted a stunt double on my show, and so I just hashtagged, I think, stunt double, and then I put Los Angeles stunt double, and I was just searching, and then I that's how I found you.
Oh, that's good if you're wondering, now I know what tags I need to use more often.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so if anyone's looking for that, you should. I use hashtags all the time. I don't know why people. That's how I found my hairdresser. Everybody. Yeah, I just put in the location and then what I want.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can never
It's
keep
worked.
up. I know there was like rules of like how many hashtags you
Right,
can use. And
right. Yeah. Well, thank
smart.
you so much for coming on. I feel like I learned so much, so interesting, and I just appreciate everything that you shared with us. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye. That was so amazing talking to Nikkilette. She was incredible. And we actually have her reel. So a lot of her stunts and everything, we're going to put them into some social clips. So make sure you're following Down and Dirty with Darci on TikTok and Instagram. And while you're at it, if you haven't already, give us 5 stars. I am at this point begging. Give us 5 stars wherever you listen. I would really appreciate it. Maybe write a little thing about what you like. Hey, if you don't like it, you can write that too. But we'd really appreciate it. Ramey's like, no, don't say that.
Yeah, don't say if you don't like it. Only, but we do love constructive criticism, and if there's anything you do want to hear more of,
Yeah.
that's a good place to let us know.
Then that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so I have something I need to update you on that I think also the listeners need to know. It's pretty important in my life. I have had a pet spider for a while now, and so he lives in my bathroom, and I've talked about him before. He hangs out with me all the time. I made a huge mistake, and Spencer, that is his name, I forgot to tell the cleaning people that I had hired to clean the house that I had it was a pet and not a spider to hurt. And so I left the house, and then when I came back, I noticed Spencer was gone. So I'm gonna just go with, maybe he made his way out the window, but
they set him free.
Rami, I was so sad, like literally so sad. Yeah. So that was that. And so I'm working through that. But also okay, yesterday I was at the grocery store, and I was sitting in my car, and I don't know if this has happened to you, but when you see someone else do something embarrassing and then you don't want them to see that you saw. Okay, so
yeah, it's like secondhand embarrassment. You're like,
yeah. And so I'm at the grocery store, and I'm literally sitting there, and I see this lady leave her cart, and it's super windy. So she left her car empty, and she was like finishing, like putting her groceries in the back of her car, and it literally takes off and hits the car next to her, which is a very nice car. And I literally am sitting in my car, because of course I'm sitting scrolling Instagram in my car. Who doesn't do that? And I literally look, and I see her, and she starts to do the thing where she's like looking around to see if anyone noticed. And I'm like, what do I do in this moment? Like, do I go and see if the car's okay? Like, if she's actually damaged it and like do something about it?
Right.
No.
I don't know. I would just, not my circus, not my monkeys. Is that the saying? That's what I would be like, well, but I hope that she would leave a note on the car if the person wasn't there.
I'm gonna go with she didn't. But I was sitting in my car. I just like sunk down in my seat as like far as I could, so she couldn't see that I saw, and just went about my day. But I was just thinking about like embarrassing stories, because I was talking to someone. I love how I always incorporate it back to careers, but I was talking to someone about success and what just like offbeat things that I've found that have made me successful. And one of them is that I'm perfectly okay with being embarrassed. So in a situation, growing my social media or being on a podcast or whatever it may be, I always have the mindset of there's going to be people that are going to find this cringy or embarrassing or whatever. And I'm 100% okay with embarrassing myself or standing up in front of a crowd and doing some sort of presentation and it possibly not going well. I just feel like I'm like, what's going to happen? Okay, so I'm embarrassed.
Do you think that you've always been that way, or like as you've gotten, as you've come into yourself more? Because I think I used to avoid being embarrassed at all cost, but I find now as I'm like getting closer to 30 and I'm more established in my career, I'm more willing to take risks and have that kind of like F it mentality like that. Yeah. But I was not always like that. Were you always like that?
I think it's come through my background in dance and background in sports and stuff. Like things happen especially in dance. Oh my gosh. One time I peed myself on stage while I was dancing because I had to go so badly, but like the performance was on. So
my God. Yeah, you have to be used to just like going with it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Literally, it's like I went through so many different embarrassing moments that I think I just started to realize nobody remembers them but you.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they do, that's a fun story for them. That's cool. Like, there you go.
That's true. It's like, yeah, what are they going to think you're weird for 1 second and then move on?
Yeah.
That's literally the worst that could happen. And that's what I've realized as I've gotten older. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares. Let me just do it. And you're right. Once I did start doing that, that's when a lot came into my life as well.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think I started noticing it today. I did like a little about me pitch thing at a networking event, and I even felt that nervous feeling. I don't not have it. I think people think I can just stand up and start talking. I always get that weird kind of jittery where your legs kind of feel weird feeling.
Yeah.
And I just tell myself like, oh, this is excitement because I get to talk to a crowd of people and then just kind of go for it. But yeah, I speaking of success, I definitely want to jump into our career column. We have a few questions from my DMs. So for those of you that are listening to see if yours gets read, you can ask me questions at any time. DM me at Career Coach Darci, and I will read it here and we can talk about it. So Rami, give me the first one.
Yeah. All right. So this one was sent to you and it says, professional question. You've been at the company doing the same job for 7 years. Reviews are constantly excellent. You go above and beyond, and you're referred to as an asset. There's an opening in your department for the same role as yours. You know they were hiring, not a replacement, and the role is identical. The pay scale is listed, and you see that you are getting paid at the bottom of the scale that's listed on that new job. How do you approach the subject with your manager to ask for more?
Interesting. So this is actually really great story because now that so many states are requiring you to put the salary range on the job description, this is the third time I've gotten a message similar to this. And it's amazing because now you get to truly see what the company is valuing this job at. And obviously, they're not turning around and value. It's not that they don't value you, it's that companies are trying to not spend a lot of money. So they're not even thinking, oh, we're hiring for this job and we're willing to pay more. Let's go jump in and tell Anna she gets to get paid more now. That's not the first thing on their list. However, it should be the first thing on your mind. So my recommendation for this person is I would ask for a one-on-one. It's definitely a better conversation to have in person or via Zoom, however you communicate with your manager. I would definitely ask for that if you don't have it regularly. And then just state very bluntly, hey, I noticed we were hiring for this role. I'm excited to have like a colleague with me. I did also see on the job description that this is the salary range. And then use that evidence that you explained to me in your question. I have done this, this, and this. I have great reviews. I think it makes sense for us to talk about a raise. And just bring it up that you want to talk about what that looks like. And then you guys can have that conversation of what that raise should look like for you. But make sure you come into it with the expectation that you want. So just know, like in your heart of hearts, I already know I want this much money, but don't come out right away and say that. Let the conversation happen so you can use that evidence first. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that could also work too, even if it wasn't this exact situation, but if you were applying for a job and saw that a similar job at another company had a different range, like you could use, the market value essentially to like negotiate for a higher rate.
100%.
So
I always recommend doing your research on the market and seeing if you do see those salary ranges. Throw that into this evidence that I talk about. But the most important thing is your value to the company and what you've accomplished. So first and foremost, always leading with, hey, I've hit this metric. I've hit this goal. I have these great reviews. Anytime someone sends you an email that says, thanks, you really crushed it, like literally screenshot that and save it so you can bring it in when you're talking about asking for a raise. It's definitely worth it. And again, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no. Then you're in the same position you're in. And then you can decide, okay, do I want to stay here or not? So definitely bring it up to whoever wrote this in because that's very important. Okay. The next one is an interesting situation. So I'm going to read this one. She kind of gave me the rundown and story. She literally wrote, I was taken aback by this because, she's not used to something like this happening. I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically she was interviewing for a very specific position. And then once she got through the interviews and they told her that they wanted her, they literally said, we want to offer you an associate level instead, which would be a step down from the position she's interviewing for. So she asked me, how does she deal with that type of situation and how does she respond? So my response is that the biggest thing that matters to you is how you should approach the situation. If you are someone that really values your title, then that's going to be really important to you. And you should explain to them why you want to stay at this title and this level, and ask them first and foremost, why have they decided to bring you to an associate level or whatever the situation is? Because it's usually either they want to pay you less or they think that you don't have the experience that they were looking for. So they're bringing you in at that level. I don't know. Have you ever experienced that situation, or do you know anyone that has?
I know this happened to one of my friends recently, where they did that because they ended up finding someone that they wanted at the director level. It was more of like them internally restructuring what they even thought that department should look like. So I'm wondering if maybe that's similar. So it's not even like, oh, she doesn't meet this. It's more so like, oh, we decided we actually are bringing someone on even more senior.
I see.
Also.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
maybe, I don't know. But for me, I'd just be like, well, am I still getting the same compensation that we talked about? And, you know, like you said, if it's important to have that role title, then maybe there's another variation of that she could get.
Right.
That's weird.
So what I also would recommend is, this can go for anyone that's wanting a title that's different than what they're offering. I would ask them to write into the contract that you can move into the manager role or whatever is the senior role, whatever that you're actually wanting, within 6 months, as long as you are hitting your metrics. Make sure that's in there, because you don't feel weird about bringing it up in 6 months. Hey, like, remember how we kind of talked about putting me into this role or giving me this title? It's going to feel a little bit awkward. But if you actually have it written into the contract and you know you've talked about it from when you signed that offer letter, then you're going to feel way more confident going into that and saying, hey, just so you know, it's about 6 months. Like, I want to talk about, make sure we change that title. I've hit all my metrics. And then the last thing I'll say is that I really want to make sure that if you're going to be doing the job that they want you to do and they're just trying to either pay you less or give you that less of a title, make sure that you're being compensated at the level that you knew was going to happen. So that was the main thing I told her. I was like, hey, as long as you're getting compensated at the level that you're supposed to be, then you guys can talk about what that trajectory likes for you in the future.
I was going to ask you, I think we've talked about this before, but so let's say she is doing the same job description at a lower title. When she maybe in the future then goes to apply to new jobs, I know that I think I've seen you say like there's no harm in like changing the title on your resume to match the title of what you're applying for. So that's also something maybe she could keep in mind.
Yeah.
If you still have that opinion.
I do. I'm laughing because HR people are going to come for me, but it's so true though.
But if she's doing those same things, like what's the difference between a manager and a senior manager? You know what I mean? Like,
right. You should write the title that best describes your responsibilities. So if you are in fact overseeing and leading a person, that puts you in a more manager category. If you have been in a position, let's just say a project manager for 2 or 3 years, and you were added on responsibility, then you are likely a senior project manager. And if they're just not giving you that title, that's where I come in and say, put yourself at the level that you want to be and that you are based on your responsibilities, put that on your resume. And if you get called out, it's okay. Just tell the interviewer, I put that because that reflects my job best. And then you're fine. But yeah, I was laughing because there's definitely times where they'll call the HR department and they're like, oh no, that person's not that title. So please don't change your title from like HR to a sales rep, because that's probably
that doesn't make sense.
That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. But yeah, that's it for our career column. So I enjoyed talking to Nikkilette so much. That interview was so amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Raimi, and give us 5 stars, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye
guys.
Thanks for listening to that Onomy podcast. Onomy is a creator-led educational platform that teaches you the things you wished you learned in school so you can thrive in adulthood. Onomy lessons are completely free, and they're taught by some of your favorite creators from around the internet.
Head to onomy.co to start learning about things like budgeting, investing, taxes, how to thrive in your relationships, how to find your dream job, and so much more. That's onomy.co, onomy.co. See you there.